all of us know that Houston has been talking about the new DeLorean for exactly a long time. And well, I have a lot of patience, but when my patience is used up, it's gone. And so here's kind of stuff. DeLorean goes electric. Well, that didn't work out. Sold the electric car to Google. Apple produces new cars as early as 2019, and what that headline really means is they changed the crash protection and emission control laws, that if you produce less than 500 cars per year, you don't have to meet the safety and emission standards for new cars. That's what that means. So you can get an old DeLorean and do whatever you want to it, and you don't have to comply with a lot of laws. You don't have to put airbags in and all other business. But did they produce no cars? No. And it's the low volume of production of DeLorean cars. And then they have this commercial, oh, it's time for a new DeLorean. Number of cars produced today is 0. I mean, they still do the run and drive ones and that kind of stuff. And so I'm gonna digress for 1 second here. Some of you know that over 20 years ago, I built the first DeLorean with full-size power windows, clear coating, and a V8 and all that other business. And shortly after I published the first article, John DeLorean called me. When he first said it's John DeLorean at first. Didn't believe him, but it was really him. And we talked for a couple of hours, and then we corresponded for a couple of years after that. One of the ideas we had was to certify existing DeLoreans as newer cars, depending upon what you did to them. Like if you put the dual turbocharged island kit on, it became an 84. If you put a Bose stereo system in, it became an 85. If you put ground effects, it became an 86, and that kind of stuff. It never took off because people really weren't modifying their cars or updating them. But then in, I think it was 1999, I got a call from John DeLorean's lawyer. And he said, John's looking at getting back into production, and he's really impressed with your engineering skills. Would you consider working as part of his engineering team? And then he says, well, he's thinking of buying all the parts from Consolidated, putting a production plant in Ohio. And I says, well, yeah, just let me know. I mean, we might consider something like that. Then John came to Cleveland in 2000, came to see my car. He really loved the windows. I mean, we sat in the car and we talked for about a half hour, and playing with the windows. And he said, you know, I had engineers work on this for 2 years, couldn't figure it out. And he expressed some frustration at the engineering capabilities of people he worked with on his cars. Later on that day, when we were outside and people were looking at the cars, John, with some of our other friends, said, you're a damn good engineer, and if I had more people like you, I'd probably be in business today. And I thought that was really, really a cool statement, but I didn't understand the significance of that until I saw Framing John DeLorean and the story of Bill Collins and Lotus. So it turned out that Bill Collins was really great at making prototypes. He wasn't good at making production cars. And that's what John was, when he said that to me, that's what he basically meant. I mean, Chris and Ryan and the other guys who work on your cars, there's some really, really difficult things to do to put that car both apart and back together. Not any way you ever do on a production line. So, you know, I understand what he meant when he said that now. And then, unfortunately, at that time, his health was failing, and a number of years later, he died. But he never got it back in production, but he was seriously thinking about doing it. So I've always had in the back of my mind, what if we do? How are you going to do new DeLorean? What do you need to do? So I got tired of waiting, and decided we're going to make a new DeLorean. And part of this has to do with Brian. He likes Iron Man, and the story of Iron Man having money and robots, you can do whatever you want. And Iron Man is kind of gold and red with some blue lights. So we're calling this Iron Man DeLorean, and it's a complete modernization of the classic car. So what do you need to build a new DeLorean? Well, of course, you need a DeLorean, but not much of one. The frame kind of helps, your chassis and suspension, and then you need one of those fiberglass tubs, and then you need your stainless. So with a car with nice stainless is a good idea. So I've been looking for a bare bones DeLorean body since 1999. Long time. I already had the engine and trans because I had friends give me those things, and I've been looking for a car to do that. So finally, in 2018, one day I got 3 phone calls from people going, there's a DeLorean for sale with an engine and trans on the East Coast. So I called the guy and worked out a deal. And I bought cars before, and they end up a few days later, a week later. This guy was in such a hurry to get rid of the car, he literally loaded it up and drove it overnight. And I wake up the next day and the doorbell rings. What the hell's going on? And I was like, it's the car. He was really in a hurry to get rid of it, which is okay, but to me it was just kind of, whoa, what a shock. A few months later, I finally had some time to take the thing all apart. Found out that the car had been through Hurricane Sandy. There was sand in the frame and a lot of rust and corrosion. The interior was shot, so that didn't surprise me. But then this is the one that really, I found this shift lever inside the frame. And I'm going, well, that definitely is not a DeLorean. And I didn't recognize that shift lever. It's from a Corvair automatic. And then let's see, there's all this sand and there's stress marks on the frame. This car was a dune buggy. Okay? And yeah, it really was, and it was airborne a number of times, but nobody on the East Coast knows nothing. I talked to DMA, I talked to Brady, anybody I could answer. Nobody knows anything about this car, but it's obvious it was there, and someone was dune bugging. So it's still a mystery. It doesn't affect what I'm doing, but boy, I'd sure like to know who was using it as a dune buggy. The new build begins. What needs to be upgraded? Well, John DeLorean was a brilliant car manufacturer. And a little bit of history that when he was at Pontiac Motor Division, GM was catching up with the Mustang. And GM made the Camaro and the Mustang in an 18-month period, first car partially computer designed at General Motors. They produced that car in 18 months. And it was a fairly decent car. And John was involved with that. So he knew he could produce a car in 18 months for enough people and the right skills. The other thing he did was he didn't have a paint line. And I know most people weren't involved in the emission control field. The fact that he went with a stainless steel body panels saved the equivalent today of $50 million in paint line and emission controls. Put a lot of cost there. He also did not put a welding line together because he went with an injection molded body. Saved another $50 million in capital costs there. And then there were some other things he did with the car. He basically outsourced the painted frame, so he didn't have to worry about that. He outsourced painting the fascias, didn't have to worry about that. So he did a lot of things to make his production efficient and very low cost, and you never hear about that. You would have to be an engineer who was familiar with the automobile industry to understand what he did and why he was so efficient at what he did. But on the other hand, there were some problems with the cars. No full-size power windows, which we already talked about. It was underpowered because the person who designed that fiberglass frame in the first place kind of didn't do a good job and had 500 pounds of extra fiberglass reinforcement so the car could meet crash standards. It was an engineering problem.
And the engine wasn't what he wanted.
No, it wasn't, but, okay, so he also initially wanted a Chevy V8 in it, but GM pulled the strings on that, so we ended up with a PRV engine. Otherwise, that car would have been a rocket. The automatic transmission had no overdrive. You can't fit a rear tire in the front bonnet in case you get a flat tire. That's not cool. The cooling system is marginal. The air conditioning system is marginal. There's inadequate storage space, which we all know about. Initially, the door handles ended up being the wrong place, and they had to put pull straps in and back. And the steering wheel blocks your view of the gauges. And for me, I got really wide feet, and I had a lot of trouble where I pressed the gas pedal and I could press the brake pedal at the same time. Not a good thing. If you remember the Audi 5000s where they kind of put the gas and the brake pedal too close and kind of killed a few people. So DeLorean had that problem, at least for me. And then, of course, there's no power steering, there's no vented disc brakes. The car was good for what he intended it, but by measuring it for today's standards, it has a lot of shortcomings. Trailing on bolts could be a problem. Substandard electrical wiring, I know a lot of people have got to deal with that. Stock fuse box melts.
Side view mirrors are not convex.
No power seats. Substandard dashboard audio speakers. Headlights are really out of date compared to today. And the interior only came in 2 colors. This is the one that I never quite understood. No translucent paint options. Painting a DeLorean with a translucent paint looks really cool. Of course, by today's standards, no cup holders, it's not the dashboard, there's no airbags, and of course, the turning radius is really too large. So what can you do about this? There are easy upgrades you can do to your car that significantly make it a better car. Power seats, about $140, you can solve that problem. Convex mirrors, about $140. Vented disc brakes, about $800. AM outriggers, about $200. Trailing on reinforcements, about $100. The gas trap door, I do that. If you can get it done, because I know Chris does it. And then, of course, cup holders. So power seats, this is how I solved the power seat problem. So this is a stock DeLorean seat track, and I extended it another 3 inches, but again, another part from the DeLorean seat track. Put a little angle iron here, an angle iron here, and then a linear actuator in between, and I have power seats. And there's the button on it, and it's really nice. You just go back and forth, don't have to rock the seat, let them visit and deal with corroded arms that don't work, and it cost a total of $140, a couple of days work, and now I have power seats. Vented disc brakes. We did this last year at the show. We installed a vented disc brake kit from Ed Uding in England. It cost around $800. They look like that, and I can tell you they do make a difference. They both did. This is not hard work.
What's the improvement?
What's the improvement in braking ability? I don't know, 50%. I mean, it's a lot. The car just stops a lot nicer. I know this picture doesn't show it real good, but right here is one of the stainless steel outriggers. And the lower A-frames on a DeLorean are thin sheet metal because they're a copy of a Mustang, Pinto, Falcon, and they're only supported by the rubber bushings right here. So they tend to do a lot of this when you're braking or accelerating, and they really did need some reinforcement. So they have this outrigger kit, and it's really simple to install. You take the bolts off, hammer them flat, take the new bolts, pound them in, the front and the back, open them back up, and you're done. I mean, you can put these in for less than a half hour on each side, and your steering is a lot stronger and a lot more stiff. Definitely an easy thing. I recommend it. This is the easy fixes to make your car stop better and handle better.
Another upgrade to the Iron Man DeLorean was boxing in the lower A-arms. As you can see in this picture, a portion of the lower A-arm towards the center of the car has been welded with 2 steel plates to form a box. This was easy to do once the lower A-arm was removed from the car. The lower A-arm was also removed so we could replace the 40-year-old rubber bushings with state-of-the-art polyurethane bushings. Essentially, 2 things were accomplished at the same time by removing the lower A-arm.
The other thing I do on my cars is I put new shock absorbers on. And they're not fancy QA1 or whatever. Go to a 4-wheel shop and they sell these generic shock absorbers. A, B, and C, white, black, and yellow. They're exactly the same design as DeLorean fittings, but they're longer. They're like $22 each. And they're wonderful. They're a lot more ride height, same shock absorber force as a stock DeLorean, and it's easy to do. You don't have to buy all the special DeLorean parts. Convex mirrors. Does anybody have Tom's convex mirrors? I really, really like his because they're a graduated convex curve. Not much near the car, more towards the outside. We have no more DeLoreans. I really like that. The other crazy thing I wanted to do on the car, which I think is an easy upgrade, is to put in LED turn signals in your mirrors. So I pull the mirrors off the car, and that's what it looks like. And here's the motor, just some wires in it. Not real complicated, pretty standard design. But one of the things is when you put in those convex mirrors, you'll find that, particularly on the outside, the stock DeLorean case blocks part of the view from the mirror. So I sand off part of the case so I get full advantage of the mirror. And then I smooth it out so it looks real nice. Not hard to do, but it really improves your side visibility on your car. And then, of course, I want to have LED turn signals in my mirrors. So I cut this hole in here with a Dremel. Easy to do, part comes out. And then that's what it looks like on the other side. And then I put the LED strip in there and run the 2 wires down through the same hole as the mirror motor comes through. There's plenty of room for it. And then put a little fiberglass over that. And then you get into this issue of the mysterious yellow wire. And I know over the years everybody said that yellow wire was for heated mirrors. It wasn't, because there's 2 connections to that yellow wire in the door. It most likely was for illuminating the outside mirror and for illuminating the switches on the doors. The problem is, it's not connected. People think it is, but it's not. So how do you fix that yellow wire so it actually works? Well, first thing you gotta do is pull off your T-panel. And that's what it looks like on your T-panel, kind of dirty and needs to be cleaned. So you rip off that tape. You see this little old panel. There's obviously a production compromise on it. Because in the roof panel, there's a bolt, threaded bolt here, threaded bolt here. And they only put this thing on with a couple screws and left a few little holes in here. But that's what they did. So you pull that thing off, and then you go, wow, there's some wires in there. Well, when you pull them out, this is what you find, and you go, oh my God, how did they get all of that stuff in there? Another one of those production line glitches that how much time would it take you guys to put this all together and then shove it all into this hole? I can tell you, it wasn't easy. I cheated, I made my hole bigger, so just did. There's the yellow wire. This is the yellow wire that goes to your door, and it's not connected to anything. So I had to open this up and run another wire into here. So now my yellow wire works in the doors. And that yellow wire now goes to the turn signals in my mirrors. And that's what it looks like being tested, and that's what it looks like on the car. Yeah, pretty cool. I call this an easy fix. It takes a little bit of skill, So I can tell there's a lot of things that are a lot harder work. So that's the mirror thing. And then cup holders. This is kind of a half hard, half good thing. There's stuff going on in this car. And really like having a cup holder here. This is our early prototype. There's something missing there. Where's the window switches? That's a different story and a lot more complex story. But this is the early prototype of the cup holder. And then here's the later design of the cup holder. That's what we're going with. We're kind of creative with it. So it fits different size cups, coffee cups, big drink cups, big golf cups, or whatever. That's how we designed it. And then, of course, gas flap hoods. None of my cars have gas flaps. I put gas flaps into it. This is the stock thing. This is the bracket I designed. There's a video on this, on YouTube we did. If you want to put a gas flap in your hood, just get the gas flap. And it's not really a hard job. And we have a video that shows how to do it. So I consider that to be an easy job today. And then trailing arm reinforcements. This is your trailing arm bolt what attaches to the frame. And then it comes out of the trailing arm. And this portion of the bolt is kind of flapping in the wind. And every time you accelerate, it moves that way. And you decelerate, it moves that way. And it moves a lot. So a number of years ago, I did some testing on this. And there's at least an inch movement back and forth anytime you use the car. They really do move a lot. So I'm putting a V8 in this torque. I can't afford or allow a trailing arm bolt to kind of flap in the wind. So this particular part here comes from a kit made by Dave Bauerle to reinforce the trailing arms. You take the stock bolt out, you pop this one in, you put this thing on the end, and then this bolts to a plate that bolts to your frame. And it actually turns out to be a relatively simple job to do. It doesn't take a lot of time. And it reduces trailing arm bolt movement by at least 50%. And that we verified with actual measurements. I know this is not a great picture, but here are the bolts that hold this plate. And that plate goes to the end of the trailing arm bolt. So you got to drill a few holes in your frame. But boy, does this eliminate the issues with trailing arms. It is an issue, and if you don't like having the risk of trailing arms falling off, which they did on some of the earlier cars that came out, that's something that can be done. Okay, this is some major engineering stuff. This is what I really like. More storage area. This gives me a chance to take a reciprocating saw to a DeLorean. And this is not the first time I did this. I did this on the electric DeLorean also. So you take that bonnet area, which has basically 1/8 thick fiberglass, and you just cut all this stuff out of it. And there's a ton of room under here. It doesn't do anything, just wasting space. And on an electric DeLorean, we used that because we wanted to put batteries in here. But this one's not electric, this is a stock one. And we wanted more storage space. So first thing we did, this is something I thought about an electric car, but I never had time to do. This is the vacuum brake booster. And then they have this offset from the firewall, which is like 3 inches long. I don't know why, it just was. And so it takes away at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches from your available storage space. So I took that part off, cut it in half, and re-welded it. So now my storage space got like 1.5 inches bigger, just changing the design of that part. So this is the initial build of the new front bonnet box. You can see it's quite deep here. 1/8 fiberglass left over from other projects. And then I just used aluminum angle iron rivets to put it together. Not real complex. And strength-wise, it's about what was in there in the first place. This is a stock DeLorean spare tire inside that box. And this is the box installed, and that spare tire is like sitting on the bottom now. Normally that spare tire is in this area and everything else is lost. So this is like 4 or 5 inches below where the stock spare tire used to be. And then this is a front tire up front. And you can see it easily fits in here, not a problem. And then if you have a flat rear tire, oh my goodness, it fits up front and it doesn't have to go in the passenger seat anymore. Yeah, wow, gee, amazing. So, yeah, a rear tire fits in the front of the car if you get it right.
How much does doing that modification take away any of the reinforcement, like for safety wise, if you get into a wreck or?
No.
There's nothing there. It's 8-inch fiberglass.
The only thing that's all that way is crumble tubes down below from the chassis.
No,
That's fine.
we don't touch those at all.
Yeah.
This is just that thin cover underneath there, so there's no change in any reinforcement or anything. Yeah.
What about the actual fiberglass?
This is same 8-inch fiberglass, same thing. Is it a little stronger than stock? Like, I got all these nice 90-degree angle irons in here that wasn't in the stock stuff. I don't think it's any weaker. Could it be any stronger? Yeah, it probably could.
Quick question for you.
Yeah,
Does that impede at all any airflow from the front radiator?
no. The radiators are aimed down anyways.
Right.
Some of you may remember that one of the concerns early on was the fact that the radiators blew air across the frame and heated up the gas tank.
Yeah. Exhaust.
So then they made a shield to stop that from happening. This just eliminates that issue. And there's the hood. So I had that solved, and I'm putting the spare tire back in, and I'm going, this is okay, but gotta be a better thing to do. So I came up with this brainstorm. In between the front frame horns and the sway bar is this space. Why not take advantage of it? So we took the spare tire and put it into that space. So now I have all this extra storage space underneath. This, of course, if you remember, this is a stock storage level on the DeLorean. And below this, you saw all the big old empty space for lots of storage. And it basically increases the storage area by at least 50%. And it's just there. A simple change. This takes a few days worth of work, but to me, it's worth doing. It's just very, very cool. The radiator in the DeLorean is marginal, particularly in this climate. And if you talk to the DeLorean mechanics, particularly Toby, who works on Lotuses, the Lotus car has 3 radiator fans and a bigger, longer radiator, but the DeLorean only had a shorter radiator and 2 fans. Why? I don't know. Somebody thought that it would be better if we had a DeLorean with a shorter radiator. The crazy thing is, stock DeLorean is 12 by 24, and you can go buy a cheap radiator that's 12 by 36, and you just kind of put it up there and it fits, and then put 3 fans on it. Not all that complicated, but it really helps increase your cooling capacity. The DeLorean air conditioning condenser has no pusher fans. In this climate, you've got to have pusher fans on your condenser. So here's the new condenser in the car, and here's the pusher fans in front of the air conditioning condenser. So
For us dumb people, what is a pusher fan?
on the stock DeLorean radiator, you've got 2 fans in back. They suck air through the radiator. In hot climates, they put a fan in front of the air conditioning condenser, and these actually push air into the condenser.
Still pulling on the other side.
Yes, you still have the fans pulling on the other side, but now you have air pushing air through the condenser. And of course, it makes your air conditioning much more efficient, and helps get rid of heat.
And if you're driving slow,
Oh yeah, if you're stuck at a stoplight, this really helps to dissipate the heat and make your air conditioning work.
Like I remember anything. Question.
Yeah,
So you have a total of 5 fans, 3 pullers and 2 pushers.
Yeah.
Are those on 2 completely separate isolated circuits?
Yes.
The engine temperature will control the pullers?
air conditioning, the engine temperature controls the plate fans, the air conditioning controls the push.
All that stuff.
So this, of course, requires some wiring changes. You know, the full-size power windows, I don't need to believe they're that subject. There's a video on it. There's the driver's door, there's the passenger door, and there's Andy and Ryan. Yeah, Brian and Joe having fun with that. So here's where I got into some crazy stuff. Anyways, the pull strap is back here on a stock DeLorean. This is where the stock handle went, and they put a strap back here because this ergonomically doesn't work unless you're 6.5 feet tall. So functionally, the door handle here it's not functional. It doesn't do anything. So they put the pull strap in here on the 83s, mounted it to the door inside. And I said, well, I don't like that. Besides, you have these really crappy speakers on the front dashboard. And wow, wouldn't it be cool if we had a speaker in the DeLorean door? Wow, that'd be really cool. So I kind of put a speaker in here and moved the handle back. And I'm having other thoughts right now. If I was to probably do this again, I would just get rid of the handle and just put the pull strap and it'd be a lot less work. But this is, again, the other door with the pull strap door handle relocated and the speaker here. And this is the relocated handle bracket. Fits around the switch for the stock solenoid door locks that I don't use. I just completely abandoned that. That's the rework bracket. There it is mounted. And then I was working on this and I'm going, what the hell is that? So over here, this is part of the lock mechanism. And my door is like all scratched up here. And the lock mechanism is hitting this. I'm going, well, that's not a good idea. So if you're having trouble with your lock mechanisms, it might be this. So anyways, I took a 1/2-inch drill, put a hole there, and I called it done. And that's, you can see the little hole there fixed in there. The interior color on the Iron Man DeLorean is parchment and maroon and gold for the door handles. Speakers in the doors, that's what the speakers look like. And of course I put Toby's actuators in, got rid of those very heavy solenoids. Now I get into some of the major engineering stuff. My feet being really wide, and here's the stock DeLorean gas pedal. My shoe just covers both of them. It's a real pain. So I pull the pedal box out, and instead of the gas pedal going that way, the gas pedal goes that way. But that means you have to relocate the pedal box. That's kind of a lot of work. So it's out. So I relocated this hole, moved the thing over that way. So now the brake pedal's more to the left. Refinished the box, put a new slightly offset plate here for the columns that you want to attach to. And you know, this is what it looks like in the car. You know, after the incidents with the Audi 5000s, if this had been designed initially from the factory, it would have been like this and not the way it was originally done. It turns out to be a real safety hazard. All you people who love your great grounds that screw up on you, this is the gazillion plus 12 wires coming off of your alternator to the inside, and this is just all corroded. I get rid of this, and I put in a number 8 wire for the alternator, because that's kind of a silly design. And then if you don't have the drawings of where all your grounds are, they're all over the car. They tie everything together. The one thing that really surprised me in this, I was working on the doors. I'm going, where's the ground wire for the door, steel door? And there wasn't any. I mean, you have the stainless steel stuff on the car. Your ground wires should be attaching to your stainless steel stuff on your car. And it didn't. So I put one. Some other things I started playing around with. There is a wiring diagram for a DeLorean. It's okay, but I don't find it to be all that useful. So I started putting together wiring diagrams that show where the wires are in the car. So this is how your lights go on your door. They go up through here. This is your door solenoids. So these are actual wiring diagrams that show where your wires are in your car and what they do. I think that's something that's really needed. Here's the front end. This one surprised me. So somebody asked a question about the fiberglass crumple tubes in the frame. Did you know that there's wires that run through the center of that? So I stuck them through at the factory. So this is what the front end wiring actually looks like. It goes through here, and it goes across to your fans, and it goes across to your headlights, and it goes underneath of here and back to here to your fuel and gas level sensors. So they kind of go here and around and over to there. That'll be a good idea, so people know what goes on there. I got that one done. And this is the new fuse boxes I'm putting in, because they have them now where when a fuse blows, the LED indicator lights up right here. I like those. It makes it a lot easier to let me know what's going on in the car. Concept drawing for the new dashboard. Got rid of the binnacle. It's going to go all the way across. We're going to have bar displays, pull-out table for a passenger computer, backup camera, that type of thing. Electric power steering. We're going to put a steering column in that's got buttons on it, so I can do stuff. Kevin and Mike are working on this digital dashboard thing. Yeah, that's kind of what our dashboard's going to look like. I'm working on that right now. Expanded metal and foam, and there's the new glove box, knee pad. And this is probably the steering wheel I'm going to use. A lot of people put electric power steering in their cars using parts from Saturn booths. It's got nice buttons on it, and it's a little sports car. Saturn sports car, and there's aftermarket computers, so you can bypass the stock computer and make the thing work. And it's a few $100s. It's not all that expensive. And then, of course, I'm going back what I did years ago with the Rover V8, except this one's going to be fuel injected. I'm going to put a hole in there to fit the Tiptronic shifter. There's the Tiptronics. This is a brand new one, which is really cool. And then this is, of course, the color scheme we're going to go with on the interior. So just, this is where I am with this project. Got power seats, fixed the alignment of panels, the mirrors in, turn signals, disc brakes, cup holders, relocated the door strap, put the windows in, got more storage area, got the radiator increased, got speakers in the doors. So I made a lot of progress on the thing. And future plans are, of course, the digital dashboard and steering and clear coating the body yellow. It's going to kind of look like that with the red interior. So to be continued next year. Now let me diverge with one other story. In your center console, you have these window switches, which if you want to put a cup holder there, you've got these switches in the way. So what do? Well, I'm going to put the switches in the doors. Well, that's a great idea, but you need wiring to do that. So it actually turns out that if you reconfigure the stock DeLorean wiring harness, including the yellow wire for your turn signals, there is sufficient wires in the doors to put the window switches in the doors. So let's see, I'm going to build a new DeLorean, I'm going to use the existing wiring harnesses, and just connect them a little different, and now I have switches in the doors. Wow, that's really a tough engineering problem. But the crazy thing about it, by doing that, I took 12 feet of wire out of the car. The wiring kind of went from the window motors up to one side, down to the other side, back to the other side, over to the other side, down to the console, back this way and around. They ran around twice. If you ever have taken your overhead panel off, you'll notice that half of the wires go one way, half of the wires go the other way. Why did they do that? Well, they did. But actually, it turns out half of the wires are 12 gauge, half of them are 14 gauge. And they made a decision when they built the car that 12 gauge wires are going to go one way, 14 gauge wires are going to go the other way. The switches are 14 gauge wires, so they kind of go around here, back there, over to here, over to here, over to here. There's just all this extra wire that was unnecessary. And if you can clear voltage drops on switches, you may have something to do with the windows not working too well. So, a lot of engineering upgrades. I have some plans for a new fascia, but I'm not going to show pictures of that. Still working on plans for the rear fascia, redoing that, and putting this oil on the car, maybe a few other things. Will the car be here next year? It's probably better than a 50% probability, but it all depends upon what's going to happen in Illinois and the crazy people there. Okay, questions? Yes.
If you have the window switch on the doors, do you have a switch on the driver's door to run the window on the left side?
Absolutely. Okay, so Kevin asked the question, if you have switches on the doors, do I have a switch on the driver's door to run the window on the passenger door? Absolutely. There are sufficient wires to do that.
The passenger has its own switch on the passenger.
Yes, passenger's got his own switch. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. And you know, you got wires in and I started working on it. Wow, there's enough wires here to do all this stuff. Besides, there's enough wires to put speakers in the doors. I don't have to change anything. It's all there. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody engineered something by mistake to be a good thing. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
I like the idea of the turn signals in the mirrors.
Right.
Something I've seen people do, and I've never really looked into it. I'm sure there's information out there, but how difficult is it to make turn your side marker lights into turn signals and have them work?
Okay, so the question is, how difficult is it to turn your side marker lights into turn signals?
Or is it
It isn't all that difficult. The problem is you need another wire. And of course, they make sockets and snap in, and they have a third wire. You have to run the wire across and then through that fiberglass frame reinforcement, and then look at your turn signals. Yeah, I think Kevin Grin did that on his car. So yeah, it can be done. It's not that simple. It's not that complex of a job, but yes, it can be done. Yes, Rob.
When it comes to upgrading the work on the harness, do you have any plans for upgrades from either switching over to modern GM style weather pack connectors to avoid the future corrosion or for the connections, or especially, is there any way we might be able to get brand new wiring harnesses instead of recycling 40-year-old wire?
Yeah, good question. I looked into that issue of using modern connectors. I don't particularly like the GM ones, so I'm looking at other alternatives. But yeah, I don't like the stock design. That's gonna go because it just corrodes over time. So I really need to put in connectors that are hermetically sealed, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.